Welcome to Follow the Leader podcast. I am your host, Kirk McCracken. I'm the managing editor of the Sand Springs Leader newspaper. And of course, I am always with my co-host,
Rusty Gunn,
who is the lead pastor at Church That Matters. Each week, we like to talk about Sand Springs sports. We talk to coaches and players and kind of talk about the seasons and what all's going on in Sand Springs at the time.
and whatever else we decide
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
talk about.
We ask questions, we do trivia, but it's mainly about sports. Obviously Sand Springs is a big sports town, and we like to kind of get into it and see what's going on sports-wise. All right, today with us, we're doing something a little bit different today. We don't have any players, any coaches, but I wanted to talk about how high school sports are funded.
Kind of behind the scenes a little
Behind
bit.
the scenes, yeah. A lot of people don't know really what goes on to get these sports going. So I wanted to have on the people who actually know, what's going on behind
They
the
just
scenes.
pretend to know.
Well, we're going to find out whether they do
know.
know or not, because we're going to ask some tough questions.
Right on.
But we have with us Aaron Hughes. We've got Holly BRatcher, and this next guest has to be the biggest guest we've ever had on.
The most notoriety.
Dayton probably.
He has a lot of notoriety.
He's got a lot of
Dayton is-
notoriety.
Worldwide.
But superintendent of schools, Sherry Durkee's with us.
Yes, she is.
And I just wanted to talk to them, like I said, about how sports are funded, because I know the schools can't fund them completely because a lot of them go on some pretty interesting trips. And I know the school tries to help out everywhere they can, but with budget cuts and budget shortfalls that Oklahoma is experiencing, I just wanted to kind of let people in on what not only these people do with booster clubs and things like that, but what the money goes to when people donate, when businesses donate, that kind of thing. So real quick, I just wanted to give a brief bio for everyone. And if I have anything wrong on this, just tell me, because it's possible. But Aaron graduated from Central High School, Tulsa Public School. His senior year, his basketball team won the state championship. And
Nice.
that's tough for me because
You wear the ring? You got the ring?
It's in my dresser drawer at home, but I do
man.
have one.
He's let me see it numerous times. Now, I will say, though, the high school that I graduated from beat his team that year, and we still discuss that to this day. But he's a big supporter of Sand Springs, even though he graduated from Central. He's got kids in the program, in the school, and his son is a sophomore and plays basketball. He's also the president of the Sandite Basketball Association Booster Club and helps with Sandite TV a little bit.
Very cool.
Now, Holly BRatcher graduated from Sand Springs in 1990, which makes her roughly around 31 years old.
That's right.
Right now.
Yep.
And she was a cheerleader for the wrestling team, so she knows the program. She's been around it. She plays a big role in the program with her brother, Kelly Smith, and her son, Bo, is a senior, 145-pound wrestler.
And
Yes.
he's state ranked.
Yes.
140.
And a
Absolutely.
sophomore, 182 pounds, Luke BRatcher.
Oh, that's
There you go.
right.
That's
I
right.
forgot about Luke. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Absolutely. I always think about seniors first.
I know. He just came out, so he's,
Obviously, we have, like I said, Sherry Durkee. Sherry graduated from Okemah High School, went on to Oklahoma State. Now, in high school, you were involved in basketball, cheerleading, and band.
Correct.
And you've been in the Sand Springs school system for just under 20 years?
This is my 20th.
Okay, 20 years. All right. And your son currently plays basketball
Correct.
for the program.
Yes.
Real quick, what'd you play in band?
What? Clarinet.
Clarinet.
Wow.
Woodwind.
All right.
I would have guessed clarinet.
Yeah.
That's what I would have guessed. We want to talk about high school sports, and sports here in Sand Springs is huge. Everyone loves sports here. It's a sports crazy town. It doesn't just happen on its own. There's a lot of things that go into that, and there are a lot of things that have to be purchased. Uniforms, coaches have to have tennis shoes, and all that kind of stuff, and that money has to come from somewhere. So we want to ask you guys questions. Basically, I'll start with Aaron. What does the program, the basketball program, which is what you're involved in, what does the basketball program raise money for, and how do you guys raise it each year?
The Booster Club, we raise money, work alongside the basketball programs, obviously to help. That's why we're there. Where they don't have enough money maybe in their athletic budget to cover things, we come alongside them and help provide. Some of the things that we do throughout the year, we provide food, away games. We put meals in the locker rooms for them during home games. We provide hotel accommodations when they go on the road, play in tournaments. We do other things such as help pay for letterman's jackets when we have athletes that letter. We help provide those. We've provided in the past software, for example, for coaches and players to put together game film, recruiting tapes, things of that nature.
And they've got like iPads and things like
Absolutely.
that. Absolutely.
All the players have their own accounts that they can access that film and do those types of things with. This past year, kind of unique, or actually this year, I should say, with the budget cuts that we had, we were approached and the head coaches asked if we could help pay for the stipends for a couple of their coaches.
Yeah.
Not only did they have take a cut in budget, where they lost money or money was not given, but they lost a coaching stipend. And so in order to retain or help hire coaches, they asked the booster club to help out and pay for coaching stipends. So that was kind of our big or ultimate goal this year, was to help provide that.
Certainly, everybody's feeling the crunch when it
Absolutely.
comes to the budget.
Absolutely.
And that goes all the way through, definitely sports programs, every educational program, all of that. Holly, you kind of serve somewhat of that role. We don't have a booster club for wrestling, so to
Right.
speak, but you're very active with Kelly, your brother, in helping him to raise funds. What does that look like, and what does that money go to in wrestling?
We raise money basically for our travel expenses. We go to KCI and to the Perry tournament and need funds for the boys to spend the night. We've cut back one tournament this year, which was overnight in Yukon, so we're going to do the Owasso duels locally for that. But we just do all kinds of things to raise money for the coaches to travel, rooms for the boys, food on the road. Luckily, wrestlers don't eat a lot, so the food hasn't
budget's a
been
little
issue.
slim.
Yeah, and the tournaments the coaches live in the hospitality room to
Yeah.
get by. So that's basically the same as Aaron said. We're just trying to pay for travel arrangements
So
and tournament fees.
if I read between the lines, Kelly Smith is a control freak that won't let anyone do a booster club. Is that-
Basically, yes.
Pretty much. I think you got it on the head there.
So
We just kind of oversee it and
Yeah.
see what comes
Right.
in
Yeah.
and where it's going and stuff like that. So
Awesome. Okay, so Sherry, and you might not know the number, but on average, do you know how much a sport gets? Does it vary? And if you don't know the number, that's fine. What does that cover coming from the school?
Oh, no, I'm on the school board, and I expect her to know every
Every
right.
single number.
That's right.
To the penny.
Yeah,
He has been
absolutely.
watching you like a
I
hawk.
almost could do that. That's probably true, actually.
She's really good. We don't have to worry about
It's
that.
pretty good. So let's talk about that. And I'm going to start with the cuts that we incurred last spring.
Okay.
First of all, preface what I'm going to say by saying that athletic and extracurricular activities are a priority and super important to not only Sand Springs but across the state for a lot of different reasons, but most importantly, they include a lot of kids that might not ordinarily be very engaged in school. So with that said, when we were looking at cuts, one of the things that we wanted to make sure we weren't doing is shorting one program over another. And those were tough times last spring, and it's certainly not looking a ton better for perspective into even fiscal year 18. So there's all kinds of conditions under which funding is dispersed. So for instance, Title IX comes into play when you start talking about percentages for programs. The other thought process that goes into planning is just the sheer dollars that it takes to support different programs specifically. So
Now, for those who might not know, Title IX gives us a quick.
Oh, okay. So right. So Title IX is all about that equity between mostly gender in our case. So when I say Title IX, I'm talking about programs like basketball, for instance, has girls and boys basketball. Right. And so when you distribute funding, you want to make sure that you're equally distributing between groups. And so that's really the essence of Title IX. But also, there are all kinds of things you take into consideration regarding, number one, what kind of revenue the sport brings in itself, which also helps to fund specific programs. So football, obviously, the gate proceeds would be an activity fund account. And our gate proceeds, obviously, are a lot stronger in football than, say, they would be in baseball. That's pretty disparate.
Sure. Yeah.
The other thing that I have been learning, it's interesting this conversation has come up. I had a conversation with really the cost of supporting one football player in uniform, pads, helmet, all of those things at $2,000 for one full
Wow.
uniform. And so when you start talking about decision making regarding equitability with programs, there's a lot of factors that you take into consideration. And so that really is left up to our athletic director, who I feel like does a pretty fantastic job making sure that every program is adequately funded.
I'm not even just pause there because I'm involved in the football
Absolutely.
program and know that that's not like, hey, we're going out there and trying to be, extravagant. Most of that is safety equipment.
Absolutely.
You have to have it. Yeah.
And we're making
Oh,
strides in
yes.
concussions and things like that with helmets, and so they are more expensive now.
Yes, so you're considering shoulder pads.
And we thought about just the leather ones next year.
Oh, yeah, well, I might have to put a hold on football itself in that case. But we've come a long way, right? So there's a lot of considerations. So when we went into kind of that budget saving mode last year, we looked at across the board all programs, not just athletics, but looking at what was the minimum we could cut and still keep fiscally responsible. And we landed at approximately 20%. So every program took that hit. So when Aaron talks about facilitating stipends for some of our lay coaches, one of the things at the time Ed Garrett brought to the table, now Rod Sitton is our athletic director, was really thought out recommendations about where those cuts could incur. So partly it was looking at the number of coaches we have per sport and how can we narrow that so that the cuts were distributed fairly. And so what happens is in the Sand Springs community, we have a really strong support, bond, whatever you want to call it, with our community, in that they want to see our kids succeed. They want to see our programs continue to be successful. And so you get folks like Holly and Aaron that really jump on this bandwagon about helping us out.
Yeah.
And so that's where the support comes from. So to say X amount of dollars is across the board what we do for everyone is you can't
can't do it.
You can't do it like that. Yeah.
So, Aaron, you and I have talked a little bit about, some things in the Booster Club. And what's one of the hurdles that you guys have come up against in raising funds? Because, obviously, like we've said, these sports need funds from the public, from fans, things like that. What are some of the hurdles, or one of the hurdles that you guys have run into raising money?
Just getting, I guess, the awareness out there. So thankful for this setting, in this podcast, that we can actually talk about those things. So when people listen, they know what we're up against. So I would definitely say just, the know-with-all, if you will,
Right.
as far as people knowing that there is a need. Kind of an interesting situation or story that happened just within the last, month or so. We get an interesting package in the athletic department, and it's addressed to Carrie Slayhuber, our cheer coach.
Okay, yeah.
And she didn't know what it was for, so I happened to be in the athletic office one day, and they said, hey, take a look at this. And so I opened it up, and it was a banner. Just happened to say Sandite Basketball. And it was a local business, and they had purchased advertisement with a quote-unquote marketing company. But the marketing company was based out of Texas.
Right.
And they were sending what they had told her they were going to send. But I guess when it really what it really boils down to is the athletic department, the Booster Club, we didn't see a dime of that.
Right.
And so here she was expecting us to advertise for her company, but we didn't see, any of those funds. And so, again, I think people just knowing what's out there. If you don't talk to the athletic department directly, if you don't talk to the Booster Club directly,
Or a student athlete.
coach, those funds don't come to
Right.
the program.
Or
and so
even
that's
if they do, it's a very small portion.
a very small
but
portion.
it's usually
Usually
It's
I'm
usually
telling
zero.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know you're right. And you and I, we've dealt with this before. I mean, we've
Absolutely.
talked about it because years past, I've dealt with something like that before, whether it be posters or calendars or T-shirts or something like that.
Right.
Like you guys said, if it's not coming from someone in the athletic department or
Right.
the school system, more than likely that money,
I get
the
those
school will
calls
never see it.
all the time, and that's the first question I always ask: is which coach are you calling on behalf of? And they don't know the coach's name,
Yeah.
or which athletes, and they don't know any athlete's name. And
Now,
so
if they just
immediately-
said Coach Smith.
then we talk a little more.
I
Then we
mean,
talk a little more.
Yeah, if they just
And-
guessed.
Yeah.
Coach Smith, yeah.
But this lady, she spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars
Yeah.
to advertise her company, and we can't do anything about it because, I guess we could, but we don't see that money. And so it was just a real
I think you're just a
unfortunate
big mini pants. And,
I know it. I can be that way.
Yeah.
Sherry, talk about real quickly just how the booster clubs interact with school administration. Do they pretty much handle themselves, or is there a lot of input that has to come from schools?
So, as you know, Rusty, athletic booster fundraising and activity accounts is that one area that can get a district into trouble pretty quickly. So never are they completely separated from the oversight of the district, because ultimately we bear the burden of any kind of foul play that could occur. So what we try to do is educate the volunteers. We have several people that are just absolutely bust their tails to try to do the right thing for our athletes. One of the things we want to make sure is we're educating them so that we take the precautions so that they're doing things correctly and financially responsibly. So that's the first connection we make. We also oversee just kind of that procedural aspect in regard to when budgets are submitted, how they're submitted, making sure they're board approved. You sit on our board, so you know that scope and sequence and have for a few years, to make sure that we're doing things correctly. And then, of course, we always offer ourselves as a resource. Anytime there's a call or a question, we try to make it as easy as possible. What I think people learn very quickly is school finance just isn't that easy in and of itself. There's lots of regulations that go on to a pretty large degree. I think that at least we try to collaborate between Booster Club officers and coaches. That's a super important piece of the puzzle. We all have I think our goal is to have the best programs possible. That's really a good marketing tool for our district. We want to encourage enrollment, encourage athletes to come to Sand Springs. And so one of the things that we try to do is better how we can market. And of course, marketing takes money, and I think to promote ourselves, to be competitive, and to show in a Perry tournament, or we're going to Coffeyville, for instance, with the basketball team today, as a matter of fact. It takes money to do those things, and so getting on the same page as the coaches, who I know Mr. Garrett and Rod Sitton would call those kind of the CEO of that sport, sure. But really to have those common goals. What are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to do? Aaron mentioned food, and that sounds pretty minimal, but you get kids that are staying after school to access a bus to go play a game, might not get in till 10, 11, even midnight, and these kids don't have access to a meal. Yeah. And so that is a huge endeavor, and we're feeding all of them, specifically with the basketball boosters. I know wrestling does that and others do as well, but that is a piece and a priority that's super important just for nourishment for the kids, so Absolutely. That we can run the program. So we have
to remember that these athletes come from the same demographics as our school population. Absolutely. And our free and reduced lunch rate, and so those students who might not have the funds to bring their own lunch or to prepare for a meal on the road, if they had to do their own, it's just not feasible.
Absolutely. And you talk about, you asked Aaron, what obstacles do you see, and he mentioned just that the competitiveness with somebody trying to make a buck at maybe our expense. The truth is, they're trying to reach people that might not ordinarily have the money to feed themselves. And so just looking at activity accounts as a whole unit to serve a team purpose is pretty admirable. And these folks, I couldn't tell you the exact percentage of the number of parents that actually actively invest in, participate in fundraising activities. But I would, if Holly and Aaron were to answer that question, I think they might say it's relatively low. So those folks that...
Well, talk about that for a minute, because you all three have children in sports programs in Sand Springs. Right. And so you are not the average parent, okay? Because of your involvement, Booster Club president, being so involved, your brother is the coach to two athletes on the mat at the same time, and then being superintendent, you kind of have an obligation to be involved. How important is more parent involvement, and what do we do? How can we get more involved?
For us, it's huge, because even when we do the junior high tournaments, I've been doing the hospitality room in there for like 5 years. Well, my kids aren't in junior high anymore, at least the two that wrestle aren't, so I'm still doing it, trying to find that one mom that I can suck in to help me. And this year I did find somebody to help me, but then her son moves up, so you got to find another mom that's going to help run the tournament.
You mean you can bless with the opportunity to help.
Absolutely,
right.
yes.
Exactly. It's all about perspective.
Right. So I did find someone to help me this year, but every year you're looking for somebody else, another mom that can spend the time to come up and help in every aspect, running tournaments, the food, getting the boys ready. And
No, just to echo what Holly says, communication. We've created a Facebook page. We have Twitter account. So we're always trying to find ways to communicate with our parents, whether that be through email, text, whatever the case may be. We have meetings at the beginning of the season, to say, hey, here's our needs. This is what we're trying to do. This is where you can step in and help out. But, communication and involvement, it's just huge.
and once you get a parent, you never let them go.
Right, that's exactly right. You treat them like gold.
Yes.
And I know I'm kind of dominating questions for just a second, but I'm
it.
just kind of interested in this whole thing and thinking about this, as Ken of mine a minute ago. Right now, Sand Springs is experiencing extraordinary success in athletics. So football, incredible, 2 years in a row. The success that we've had, really 5 years in the playoffs, but really these last 2 years have just been awesome. And basketball program, obviously our girls this year are dominant. Our boys basketball has taken great steps forward. Our coach, notoriety that he has and his state champions in the past. Wrestling program and where we're at with that. Cross country now and track, baseball, softball, all of these programs.
Volleyball. You can't leave out volleyball.
Thank you.
They're playing well.
And so the question is, or the thought is here, the importance of, right now it's easy to support success. Right. But an athlete doesn't need to eat any less when the program isn't successful. Sure. And an athlete doesn't need less protective equipment and uniform stuff. It doesn't cost any less at a hotel when the program's going through a season of drought. And so what do we do, and how can we perpetuate support rather than, ride the wave of success?
So to me, that's a hard question, and I've not figured out the anecdote for that. I wish we could, because you can look at just the gate ticket sales on a down year, and you see a crash. Huge. I mean, it just is. One of the things I will tell you that we feel like might have deterred a little bit of gate was Sandite TV.
I think
because
so.
it's just easier to be at home when it's cold outside and watch the game on TV. To me, I think the ingredient is making sure that the athletic program success isn't the only thing that makes it meaningful. So when I talk about student engagement at school, because they have an activity that, one, they like, and B, they have a coach that takes some interest in, an ability that they have outside of academics, which they may or may not be very great at, is, for me, coming from kind of the superintendent mind, the educator mind, is more important than how many trophies we have in the trophy shelf. Mm-hmm. And that's, the trophies you can see and they're very tangible. What people don't see is the engagement that happens because of student activities that aren't necessarily something I'm not good at, meaning I'm not great at the academic part, but this other part's going to keep me in school. And so education about just clarity about people understanding that component is so important. Mm-hmm. So that's a quick answer. That's not the easy one.
Yeah. So real quickly, just kind of, when we talk about funding and things that cost money, Holly, I understand that in high school you had a friend, really close friend, Mark Sullivan, and he kind of came in handy for you and your family at times. Any thoughts about that? Why did he turn out to be such a beneficial friend in your life?
I just grew up with Mark. We were just buddies all through school.
You didn't happen to wreck every vehicle that your family had, and then his dad owned a body shop.
Wow.
You've been talking to my brother.
And, I just,
I will say one time I did back into somebody in the parking lot, and I went to Sullivan's shop, and his dad came out and
fixed it for free.
And I took it back, and nobody ever knew.
This is this confession. This is a new one.
Wow.
Because
we've
there were
never had
times-
this.
And
We've never had this
It
before.
was my older brother's car, and I had just got my license, and I went out to get my book bag. He didn't even know I was driving it. And I thought, I got time to run up here, and I left and back up and hit a car. And so, no one ever
So he
knew
covered
that.
you.
So I'm
What
really
a-
wondering
So this
if
is
Mark
confession.
Out
told
there
you that.
So
now,
that's a new
Holly,
one.
you're in
Yeah.
trouble.
And then there's another one where
Oh,
maybe
no.
Kelly was 15, didn't have a license, yet you parked at a gas station, it was a standard, transmission, left it out of gear, and maybe it rolled back into a gas pump.
I'm
and
killing him. I have a lot
and
of
you
stories.
and
if
you
you want
blamed
to talk,
it And you blamed it on him.
Of course.
You said, I'm never letting you drive again, right?
That's what brothers are for.
I was
right?
the good daughter, so
Uh-huh.
I had
Oh
to
my
blame everything
What
on
are the statute of limitations on these crimes?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I
6
hope,
months,
I
I
hope
think.
Mike Carter
With
is
her mama,
listening.
I don't think there is a statute of
I
limitations.
never got in trouble.
so
It was
I hope
always him,
Candy
so they would
listens.
always believe me.
Oh, I hope Candy listens to
Yeah,
this. 'Cause she's
I'm
gonna-
sure she
I
does.
was kind of wondering when we were going to get to this part of the conversation.
Yeah, so Kirk's
I was
probably
like
got some.
going,
Well,
oh, no,
that's what I was
does
going to
he know?
say. You do have Kirk and I in the same room. Is this where I exit stage left?
Now, you guys were fraternity brothers.
we were.
Fraternity brothers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
I know where the bodies are buried, man.
That's right.
And I've got it all. It's in a hopper, and whenever I need it, it'll come out.
Well, I don't want to incriminate our superintendent. So I'm
Right.
going to
So
go easy.
I'm not from here. I'm just going
Right.
to preface that right
Yeah.
and state that up
Go
front.
easy. So.
Well, okay, we talked about the gate. You talked about the gate of some games, and obviously football has the most gate of any of the other sports. I've heard my entire life, football gets too much money and blah, blah, blah. What do you say to the people who make that claim that football gets too much money?
I think you have to be careful making judgment calls until you really have the full array of facts that go into it. And I think sometimes people get really quick to judge because they're not privy to the background of what goes into it. Football camp alone, I mean, you're talking about triple maybe the amount of athletes in varsity for football. So that in of itself would lend itself to a bigger amount of expenses versus a team of 15 varsity basketball players, for instance. And so that's what I say. I always reserve judgment until I know the facts. And that's kind of hard for people to do, I think, because it's just so easy to kind of surface talk, which is one of the hard things about my job in general, is just making people understand the facts and communicating the whole picture versus looking at a pocket of it. And so that's what I would say. If you want to get into detail, we're very transparent.
Sure.
Open our records to anyone, let you see exactly how that works. That's how public entities function. And we can talk about it. I think once a person would go through that discovery process of all of those intricacies, I can't say that
Yeah,
word.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah. We know where you're going.
There you go. That they might have a different viewpoint or perspective. And then, of course, there's people that you'll never convince.
Yeah.
So, and that's just part of public scrutiny.
Well, and you talked about transparency. I have to say, every time that I've ever called you, you've answered.
Absolutely.
You made the huge mistake of giving me your cell phone number.
You have it. Yeah.
And so, and you do. And when I ask you questions, there are times when you say, I've got to get back to you on that.
Absolutely.
Or I can't tell you that. And
Right.
that's, no comment is a comment. Sometimes you can't.
Right.
And since we're talking about sports, all of the coaches are the same way. They always answer when I call.
Absolutely.
They tell me what they can tell me, and then a lot of times there are some things that they can't.
Sure.
Now, I will have to say, Garland Betts never calls me back, so I need to
I have
call
no
him out.
explanation for that.
I'm going to call him out publicly, so hopefully he hears this and he'll
It's
answer.
soccer. It's soccer.
I
right?
played soccer.
I don't know. I don't know
There
how
should
what
be
to tell
some
you about
kinda-
that.
I know, you would think. But no.
I'm teasing. I love soccer.
Yeah. The coaches are amazing.
Right.
And this, I would say that as far as a coaching staff with the program, it's one of the best I've ever dealt with in the job that I have. And even, when I was in high school or college or whatever, they're just an absolute joy to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got to give those guys a shout out. And I know that that you guys, Aaron and Holly, you guys help with that. You guys make that stuff happen for us. So I appreciate you and those coaches.
Well, and from just a coaching kind of personality, coaches in their heart are competitive. Otherwise, why are they coaching?
Right.
It's a competitive nature.
It's not the money.
Right. And I have a tendency to be that way as well. But the other thing I will say about our coaches as a whole group is that heart is competitive, but the heart is also about kids too.
Sure.
And so if you look inside of some of those personal things they do for kids, because man, a coach has this relationship with kids that is really different than an administrator or even sometimes a teacher, and the things that they contribute to the lives of kids, not just in support monetarily or whatever, but just that investment of the heart.
Well, I've got to tell a story. I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you, but
it's good.
Kelly Smith called me and he said, "Hey, I've got a guy that's going to donate some money for us to go to a tournament. Could you come up and take a picture and do a
Yes.
story about it?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And it's Max Roofing. So I go up there and do the story, and I cannot think of the guy's name. I'm so sorry.
Jared Shelton.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jared's getting ready to leave, and when he does, he said, "Hey, I love you, Coach," and Coach Smith, "I love you too, man. I'll see you in a little bit." And I was like, "Oh my God, I want that." That
Right.
was awesome because I've coached a lot of teams, soccer teams. They were my kids' teams, but that was so awesome to me because it hit me right in the heart because there are a lot of people who say, "Oh yeah, I love my high school coach," or he was a great
Right.
guy or whatever. But to see those guys interact, I mean, you could tell they weren't just saying it. It wasn't lip
Right.
service.
Right.
They really do. And it was a joy talking to Jared and about how he wanted to come back. And he told me he owed so much to not only Kelly but the school and the program that he wanted to give back. And now
Right.
he's successful in his business, and that was just neat to see.
Well, and so you talk about the idea of investment. And so one of the things we try to promote, at least here, and we're not unique. I think others do it too, but the investment into, you think about investment in terms of getting something back. I invest my finances in hopes that I have the ability to retire at some point. Well, the investment of the human factor, the human resource is exactly what you're talking about. So you invest because we're competitive. We'd like to win. Like I really want the wrestlers to be the state champions this year. But
How much money are you willing to give
I
them
don't know.
to make that happen?
I'm thinking. I don't know. Don't tell Kelly that. But the investment of being that citizen who makes it, that maybe didn't have a snowball's chance to
Right.
make it, but then does make it and then comes back for support in the program. I mean, you just can't. That's beyond words.
It's a great
You can't-
story.
Yeah, you can't
Yes.
put a price on it.
Aaron, how involved at the junior high level are the booster clubs and what you guys do there? Because I know you see it at the high school and all the announcing and all of those things, but junior high doesn't quite get the notoriety there. What involvement does Booster Club have there?
Well, so since Coach Savage has been here, we have tried to take on the junior high programs and show them as much love as we can.
Sure.
And we've actually involved them in our fundraisings. We provide meals for them as well. So as Sherry was talking about earlier, we're talking about high school kids. Some of them have vehicles or have transportation ways to go get food, but junior high kids, they may be sitting at the school all afternoon waiting on an activity bus to come pick them up and then go to Bartlesville and may not get back till 11 o'clock midnight. And so we provide them food as well. And so we try to include the junior high programs or basketball teams as well. And as Holly was making mention, somebody's going to replace us someday. We're not going to be able to do this forever, and nor would I want to. But
You guys make this sound so appealing. I
right,
think everyone's lining up.
Everybody get involved.
It's very rewarding. It is, and I enjoy it so much, and I love being around high school sports. But we reach out to the junior high parents, try to include them, try to include their children, their teams, so that we can find someone to replace us. Somebody that we can count on to carry the torch once we're gone.
Well, if you can get your hooks in them when they're freshmen,
Sure.
you've got those parents
Yes,
for,
Right.
that's the
for
plan.
Well,
4
even
years.
7th and 8th graders.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
For sure.
Now, basically the same question, Holly. Are you guys able to? Because you mentioned helping the junior high programs with the hospitality room. How are you guys able to help them those junior high programs?
Our junior high program raises money just like we do at the high school. If we're selling T-shirts, they sell T-shirts. Our money just kind of filters down to them so we can pay for their tournaments or especially for varsity. And then they have a tournament and we have concessions. So all of ours is together. So what, filters down to them.
Okay.
Along that same line, and I didn't mean to interrupt, but one thing that we've done this year is we've actually invited or scheduled the 8th grade and 9th grade teams to come play at the Doobie, where they would play at the middle school gym or the 9th grade center. And last Thursday night, I was able to be a part of that. And it was funny because not only our teams, but even the visiting teams, coaches were saying, "Oh Lord, they're in there. They're Bob's here. He's announcing it. It has the feel of a varsity game."
Sure.
And so the junior high kids are in there practicing their handshakes. What they're going to do during for warm up. And so just doing that alone, is a part of reaching out to the junior high and letting them dress in the varsity locker rooms and things of that nature. I've got a niece who plays junior high basketball, and she knows the date on the schedule when she gets to go play at the Doobie.
That's cool.
So again, it's very important that we reach those kids now and try to get them hooked into the program.
Well, and
And by the way, Kirk interrupts me all the time, so
Okay.
no big deal
All
there.
right.
But
says
Sherry,
the guy who's asked 4
I'll put
questions
my
in a
hands in my
row.
lap.
Sherry, how hard is it for you as superintendent to turn off the superintendent switch and move into mom mode when you're watching your boy?
That is a trick. That is such a trick. So I have to go quiet. But here's the thing. I'll get excited and I'll feel myself like I can say boo just like the rest of them. In fact, I caught myself doing that Thursday night. I have to like reel it in and, that kind of stuff. But what's funny about that, I either love sports or you don't care so much about it. And so you can also watch me at a football game, which also is exciting. I can't remember the place because I'm terrible with but the recall of the Josh Tabor play at
The play,
ESPN.
The play
And I'm
the play
pretty
two.
sure I was jumping up and down in the stands. So,
Excellent.
but the mom part, you do have to bury that because there is, this fine line. And so, got to let the coaches do their jobs. My kid can take it just like anyone else as far as getting chewed on and all of those things. And so you have to teach yourself to do that, kind of throw away the helicopter mom, which I think is kind of a bad scenario for our kids anyway, and really kind of get in that mode of Sandite.
But here's the thing: as a school board member, I think maybe we'll even put on the agenda at some point and vote that it's okay for you to boo. I think you should be able to boo.
I should be able to. I do too.
Yeah,
I had the hand motion and everything.
There are some things that are boo worthy.
Right.
She mentioned letting the coaches do their job. I think she should be able to tell Dustin Kennard what kind of offense
Which
he
play
should
to
run.
My
And
gosh,
there
I'm
should
not
be
doing
a
it.
headset
Jerry
to
Jones did,
where
huh?
you
I'm
just
not-
call the play down.
Hey, listen, I'm going to give Kennard a hard time. So we're at the scrimmage, and we are in our, I don't even know, practice jerseys.
Sure,
I
yeah.
think they're the mesh things.
Yeah.
And all the other teams came in their jerseys, and I'm like, oh, because maybe it's a woman who
Well, that's like
look
the
good,
longest
right?
yard, though. Like when that prisoner
Yeah.
guys come off the thing, it's like
Right.
intimidating.
So I'm going to give him some heck about that
I think
because
it's great.
It's so funny because I'm thinking we got to look good. So maybe that's the
Well, and
woman.
those jerseys don't have numbers, so imagine me
Right.
trying to figure out who's
Who's
doing
who,
what.
right? Yes.
You know.
Yeah. Well, me too. So
Fun.
Okay.
it's a little bit of pressure here.
Yeah.
You guys, and you can answer it however you want, but I mean, you guys have been involved in Sand Springs for a while now. As far as if you put all of the programs out on the table, would you say from when you've been involved, this is the best time
Era.
for Sand Springs athletically?
Okay, so I'm going to speak. I'm the incoming. I've lived here 30 years.
Right.
So I'm more of a Sandite than I am a Panther. Okemo were Panthers. So yes, and here's my perspective about promotion of excellence in the school system as a total part of it, because athleticism is an important part.
Absolutely.
And it adds to that aura of we're doing really well. And it happens to be the most visible thing that we do because people come. We're putting on a show, for lack of a better way to
You're on
describe that.
ESPN.
Right. We're on. Yeah, we're number one. So we've got to be good at it. And so I think we're really hitting kind of that sweet spot.
Yeah.
I think we made it a priority to up the ante a little bit in regard to expectations of how well we do, and we talk about being competitive and talk about improvement all around the board, but athletics sure isn't left on the back burner of that conversation. And so I think people are willing and want.
Now that's what we would
to
expect a
step up.
superintendent to
Yeah.
say, that it's about
Right.
the whole thing.
It
Okay.
is about
now what
the
about
whole
you
thing.
competitive athlete people? What do you think?
Go ahead.
What about this year?
Well,
you
just
think?
this time is this like the best?
Yes, absolutely the best time, especially for wrestling. We have a great group of seniors that have carried the team for the last 3 years, or even when they were freshmen, and this is their year. So
I think
we're
it's their year.
excited.
I really do.
I do too.
Oh, by far,
The talent's there.
I would say by far. Even when Kaysen was in elementary, we went to a lot of the sporting events, and just not near the success that they've had in the last few years. And we've enjoyed following the basketball teams, obviously, because that's what we're closest to. But being involved in, well, not being involved with, but watching softball and keeping tabs on
Right.
Dayton and even Cheyenne. I mean, it's exciting. When you get that kind of notoriety. Real quick, I was in a hotel lobby in Duncan, Oklahoma, traveling with the basketball team, speaking to an elderly gentleman, and he goes, "Oh, Sand Springs, you guys had that play on ESPN," and I thought, wow, how cool is that? So yeah, by far the best period for
And
Sandite athletics.
that's happened to me traveling around and having Sand Springs Wrestling on. And a friend of mine from Missouri had called and said, "Oh, so-and-so here from the wrestling room wants to see if you'll get a picture of Dayton Fix." And Dayton was standing right in front of me, and I was just like, that's so odd
Wow.
that people want me to send a picture of,
Sure.
one of our
Of a
wrestlers.
high
to
school
them.
kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
I will
awesome.
say, too, you set a standard for success. And so you get a group of seniors that come in and they all graduate and you think, oh, how's it going to be next year? And that was a conversation that happened in football. We
Sure.
graduated some pretty great athletes
Yeah.
last year. And so we were kind of wondering, oh, how's it going to be? And it was fantastic. So you've set this standard for expectation, and kids have a tendency to live up to it,
Right.
Yeah.
live up to that expectation. So I love it.
A very similar situation as to that Holly was making mention of. Addison playing competitive softball at 10 years old. Young girls know Sydney Pennington. She's
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to OSU. How do you know Sydney? Can you introduce us to Sydney?
Does she
things-
know? She's her best
Yeah,
friend.
that's right. And so things of that nature. So again, just to elaborate, by far the best athletic period as far as Sandite athletics.
We're running out of time. We like to do some rapid fire, but before we do that, just a couple more questions. I got one for you, Aaron. Kirk claims to have turned from Sapulpa to being a Sandite fan. Is it true? I mean, you know him better probably than anyone. around.
I really battled this, the other night when Sapulpa was in town and we were doing Sandite TV together, and I would say so. I think I can really see that he's developed a love, if I can put it to you that way, for Sandite athletics, and so yeah, I would definitely.
I have to tell you, I used to work for the Sapulpa newspaper, and there was one year we played Sand Springs in football, and I wrote an editorial about the game, and I just pray that no one ever finds that editorial.
Oh, homework
because-
assignment.
I'm
You
on a
shouldn't have
mission
said
now.
that.
Yeah, Google.
But I've
Smear- it's
turned.
a
I've
smear
changed my
campaign.
ways. I've changed my ways.
Nice.
Okay, Holly,
Oh, no.
got a question for you.
Okay.
Nah, it's not hard.
If Kelly Smith was in his prime, it's 1992, no injuries.
Right.
How long would it take Dayton Fix to beat him by major decision? Notice I didn't even give Kelly a chance to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to give it start of the second period.
Oh,
Start of the second
so he
period.
makes it through the first.
yeah, I
period.
think so. Yeah.
It'd be great to have, how they can do those computer simulated
Yes.
like matches.
Yeah.
We need to try
He
to
can
do that.
run.
Wonder if
so.
we can
Hey,
make that.
Holly, remember he threw you under the bus. Just
I know. I
that's
should
right.
have
Yeah, you
said,
should have said
30 seconds.
30
30 seconds. Okay, so by the way, you guys are part of history today because so far Kirk has not said, I was at the gym and I was working out.
Oh, yes.
And so you made it through an entire episode and it was
awesome.
amazing.
I see that on Facebook.
Yeah,
I
it
can't believe
hasn't-
I forgot to say
It hasn't
that.
happened yet.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, rapid fire, real quick. I just had to ask quick questions. You just give me a quick response. Aaron, we're going to you first. Pizza or sushi?
Pizza.
What weapon in a zombie apocalypse?
Ooh, goodness, laser gun.
Best athlete to come out of Central High School?
Oh, John Starks.
Favorite candy?
Butterfinger.
Favorite college football team?
Oh, yeah.
Do aliens really exist?
No.
Facebook or Twitter?
You know what? Twitter.
Basketball or softball?
Basketball.
What's your Starbucks order?
I don't drink coffee.
Who did not dunk on Jordan in 1993?
I can tell you who did.
No, he did
Yes,
not.
He did.
We have talked about
John
this for
Starks
20
did.
years.
No,
he
he
never
did.
dunked on him.
You've seen the picture, Rusty.
You see who fed me that question.
That's
So-
right. I knew
All right,
that was
Holly, your
coming.
turn. Yoga or running?
Running.
Is Bigfoot real?
Yes.
What's Kelly's middle name?
Dawn.
Kelly Dawn.
Yes.
Ideal vacation.
Probably Hawaii.
Pumpkin pie or pecan pie?
Pecan pie.
What superpower would you choose?
I don't know.
Come on, give me something.
Flying. Probably flying.
Flying would be
Yeah.
cool. Biggest phobia?
Spiders.
What is your Starbucks order?
I don't drink coffee.
Favorite TV show?
Grey's Anatomy.
American Idol or The Voice?
The Voice.
All right, Sherry, you're up. Last
I'm
time.
scared. Here we
I
go.
know.
Textbooks or online?
Online.
Should phones be allowed in the classroom?
Yes.
What's Cole's middle name?
Andrew,
Favorite pro football team?
Dallas Cowboys.
Favorite college football team?
OSU.
Do aliens exist?
Yes.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Coffee or hot tea?
Coffee.
What's the best food at the high school cafeteria?
Oh, Subway. And it's not called Subway. There's a line that looks like
Sandwiches.
Subway, but it's sandwiches.
Is Dustin Kennard really as mean as he looks?
Yes.
And you believe in aliens? Okay, well, there we go.
That's awesome. I want to thank you guys for coming in because
good.
this was something totally different that I know Rusty was really in support of being on the school board, but we just wanted to let people know some of the obstacles that you guys face, but also hopefully you've answered some of the questions that they have, and then also hopefully you've encouraged them to get involved in these sports.
I would only add obstacles we face, but I prefer obstacles we overcome.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because that's what we're about, and we just are heading that way.
Speaking of obstacles to overcome, can you spell intricacy?
Intricacy.
She's got to say
Probably
it
not.
first.
I can't even say it, Rusty.
Guys, thanks so much for being here today. We're so
you.
thankful.
Thank
Thanks.
you.